What do you remember of your grandparents? I know you were younger.
Yeah, my grandmother was
Personal memories of
tiny
stuff.
little person. She was like a little bird. She was so thin. But when we were little, well, I was 6 when she died, but at night when it was time to go to bed, my dad used to sit at the piano and he'd play, I think it was the Holiday March. And we'd all go marching around the house. We had a center section. We'd all go marching around and we'd march past Grandma and Grandpa's bedroom. And she would give us 2 or 3 little pieces of candy. So I went to bed every night with sugar on my teeth, and I had lots of cavities, but that was one thing I remembered about her, because she was being generous with us, you know, helping us out. And my grandfather was a really kind man. He used to say, "Hark." I guess that must have been from England or Australia.
Oh, did he have an accent?
Not really much of one, but we went out into the garden one day and he used to listen to the birds and he'd say, "Hark," meaning he wanted us to be quiet so he could tell which bird that was. And he was a nice man, really kind, and he really missed Grandma after she died. It was really hard for him. So, and he died when I was 8, so I really didn't know them. My grandmother was sick. She was in bed most of the time, and we just tried to stay away from her, you know, so we wouldn't bother her.
Oh, cause so when you were old enough to remember anything, she was already sick and
Yeah.
in bed a lot.
Yeah, she was. I think she had a lung disease of some kind. I don't know what it was. But I remember that when just before she died, right in here, she had these really deep holes. She'd gotten so thin and so ill that her skin had sunk way down in.
What do you remember doing alongside of your mother?
Gardening and canning. Going to the movies. Yeah, that's mostly what we did together, was work.
Well, if your mother would reward you with mother time, what would you do with her? What would you be doing with her?
I didn't get any mother time.
What was your favorite activity to do with your mother?
I didn't have a choice. I did what work there was to be done. That's what it was. We didn't have any individual time. I hardly saw my dad because he was out on the farm all the time. He came in for meals, and that was about the only time we saw him. We girls especially didn't see him very often. The boys saw him, but I didn't see him very often. And my mother was always busy working or taking care of a baby. Or taking care of us, doing something.
So you do remember your younger siblings as babies?
I remember Lynn as like a 2-year-old. We had an electric stove for the first time. It was a narrow one, but he used to pull the oven door down and sit on it, and the whole thing would tip over on top of him. And he did that a lot. I think he did it to get attention because everybody could come running and you know, make sure he was okay because the stove fell on him. But one day I saw my mother getting ready to go somewhere, and I asked her if I could go with her, and she said, "No, I'm going to the hospital." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I'm going to go get a baby." And so I said, "I can't go?" "No." So she left and she went in and had the baby, and that next day I had a really bad pain in my side that wouldn't go away. And so my dad took me to the doctor, and I had appendicitis. So they did surgery on me that day. One of the tests was to pee in a bottle. I thought that was so funny, and I had a hard time hitting the bottle. It was only 5, so it was kind of hard, but I managed, and they decided I needed my appendix out. So I went in and had it done, and they put me in a room. They didn't tell my mother that I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital all the time she was. They stayed 10 days. Then when you had a baby, you stayed in the hospital for 10 days. And they didn't get the mothers out to walk around, you know, like they do now. So she didn't know I was there until the day we came home. And then they told her. So while I was in the hospital recovering, my dad, after a whole day of work, would come and spend the night with me. And some of the ladies from the ward would come in the day. They weren't very innovative. They didn't. One lady sat and knitted all the time she was there, and she let me hold the ball of yarn. That was so exciting. And so finally I got tired of it, and I let it fall on the floor. And then she'd pick it up and give it back to me, and then I'd let it fall on the floor. She finally got the idea that I didn't want to do it anymore.
It's your little game of cat and mouse with her.
Right. So then on the day that we were to go home, Mother came into my room and hugged me and kissed me, and we went home together. We had a new baby sister, Juneve, went home with us that day. So
you were in the hospital 10 days too?
Yes. And I was healed, I'm sure. But when I got home, my mother thought I needed to stay in bed more, but I bounced on the bed. I, you know, jumped up and down all over the bed, and finally she gave up trying to keep me still because I'd already healed up. So that was. And then
it was easier to watch you while you were occupied working than it was to.
Yeah, I had a kind of spiritual experience at that time when I was in there. When they went to put me to sleep with the ether, that's just really yucky stuff, ether. But all of a sudden, I was up on the ceiling looking down at my body, and I saw the doctors run over to help, you know, like they thought they were going to lose me. And I was being held by someone in someone's lap. And that person said, go and see if she is supposed to stay or go. And so the other person ran and to ask, and all of a sudden I was back in my body again. So apparently I was supposed to stay. But I think it was Jesus that was holding me, but I don't really know for sure. So, had an out-of-body experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a neat experience. Do you have any memories of spending time with your dad? Or is it similar to
Just work.
everybody was working?
Yeah. Oh, well, on the 24th, either the 4th or the 24th of July, we would go up into the mountains for a picnic with all the Scoresby family. We'd pack our lunch and go up in the mountains somewhere and eat lunch, and then we'd play softball or something like that for the afternoon before we came home to milk the cows. That was our big holiday of the year. And they had a celebration in Iona either for the 4th or the 24th of July. So whichever day the celebration was not on was the day we went up to the mountains. And
causing a big problem with the microphone. Okay, so we used to go up into the mountains on the 24th.
yeah, then play, you know, we'd eat a big picnic lunch. We used to drive back in the mountains sometimes, and it's on some of the really back roads that used to be when my dad's family first came from Australia, and after my dad had grown up some, they used to herd sheep up in those hills, and so they knew the roads well. But once in a while we'd go back in so far that the roadway would be washed away, or really a narrow part of the roadway, and they'd make us all get out of the car while the dad drove over the narrow part of the road. But it always turned out okay, and we got home safely, so that part was fun. For one day we had fun.